Giving up your life for what you believe in is the ultimate sacrifice anyone can make. Every time a soldier deploys overseas, they are accepting that they might not make it back alive. Giving up their lives isn't the only sacrifice people in active duty who deploy make. They are away from their friends, family, and everything they've ever known. The ones who deploy go to environments and cultures that are so foreign to them, it's almost like being a kid and getting lost in the mall. Except being overseas, there isn't a security guard that can page their parents for them. All they have are the people next to them and the gear they can carry. Sergeant Brian Reinerberger deployed in January 2004 and was stationed at Camp Doha in Kuwait. Sergeant Reinerberger was overseas during Operation Desert Shield, which came after Desert Storm. His job was battalion supply sergeant for a medevac unit. He accounted for property, ordered supplies, purchased items through credit cards, controlled keys to parts of the base, ordered clothing, and the go-to-war stuff. He returned from deployment December 2004 and was a changed man. When asked what challenges he had overseas, he simply responded with that he felt out of touch with his children. Most would think that there would be more challenges that stood out while living overseas, but he was in the back in a relatively safe area. The chances of getting attacked were slim to none, so in a way he didn't have to worry very much about making the ultimate sacrifice, but still had that in the back of his mind as he went on his day-to-day routine. In fact, one of the scary things that happened was when a cleanup crew was in the middle of the road and a guy came running out of the tree line acting like he was shooting a weapon. Sergeant Reinerberger was a passenger in a Humvee at the time, so the driver had to do evasive maneuvers in case it was gunfire. During the split second this happened, Sergeant Reinerberger had to lock and load his M16 to fire back, but didn't because there was no clear shot. In telling this, he says he's glad he didn't have a shot, because if he did, it was so crowded, he could have killed more than just the foreign national that came charging at the Humvee that day. This one instant, had the guy actually had a gun, or Sergeant Reinerberger got a clear shot, could have changed every life there in the vicinity. He could have made the ultimate sacrifice there, and so could other people. All the people around were civilians, and could have been caught in the crossfire and made the ultimate sacrifice for something they weren't involved in. When coming back, there were mixed emotions of relief that the mission was over and anxiety over what would happen when he got home. When he returned home, things weren't the same. The family had to start all over and get to know each other again because of the time he was gone. He came back with anger issues and says it's not related to PTSD, but it is related to the deployment. Not only did Brian Reinerberger have to make sacrifices, but so did the family and many others. Now for a polar opposite of Sergeant Reinerberger's deployment. PFC Ross Reinerberger deployed to Tarin-Kot, Afghanistan in 2012 and came back in 2013. His job was a combat engineer and urban breacher for urban operations. Unlike Sergeant Reinerberger, Private First Class Reinerberger was on the front lines and was shot at constantly. The possibility of him making the ultimate sacrifice was exponentially higher. When asked if he had any scary moments overseas, he responded that it was coming face to face with an IED. IED stands for Improvised Explosive Device. He did not supply any other details on the IED, but it is assumed no one was injured by it or made the ultimate sacrifice. When asked for a funny thing that happened, he responded while chuckling that it was when they went into a village that the intel said was friendly and ended up coming into contact with the enemy. It's strange how something that is life-threatening can end up being funny to someone. At random points throughout the day, Private First Class Reinerberger, depending on the zone at which missions were being carried out, got fired upon and came face to face with the possibility of death multiple times. Leaving Afghanistan brought about feelings of just pure happiness that he was going back stateside to family and friends. He currently has PTSD because of the deployment, and in that regard, has made a sacrifice that not many people understand. In the end, sacrifices made by those overseas are not always the ultimate sacrifice, but something similar and more minuscule that many wouldn't pick up on the surface. Brian and Ross Reinerberger, father and son, both deployed overseas, but both made different sacrifices. One was more focused on life at home and kids, while the other has a part of him still living over there, which manifested itself as PTSD. Sacrifice is something that everyone has, no matter how big or small. Everyone sacrifices something on a day-to-day basis. These two made big standout sacrifices by going overseas for roughly a year each.